Another episode of The Rundown is here. We're so glad you are joining us, Joe and Brandon, right here. And it's going to be a good one because we got a lot of stuff to talk about. Some quick recaps on the last week of what was the CSA, I guess not CSA, but MHSA softball season, as well as some stuff going on for summer ball and then Tiger baseball as well. But before we get into everything, I got to ask my co-host, Brandon, how are you doing today?
I'll tell you what, I'm a little tired. We've been playing a little bit of basketball last couple of days. Joe
Yeah.
knows as much as I have. I'm a little sore, not gonna lie. It's been a minute since we've been running daily, but hey, it's still fun. We're still shaking it, we're still rolling on, and it's gonna be a great episode. And we got some champs to talk about here, Joe. In the local area, we gotta shout them out for the performances we saw this past weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm also not good at basketball. I just run around. So just going to get that exercise in there. But we do have to shout out Evart. We talked about it last week. They were the last kind of local team in the area that was still kicking it. And they got it done. Big time W's. Michigan high school state champs, Evart. Great job. Brandon, do you kind of like have anything to talk about that? Because I mean, this is a pretty big deal. Everett's a smaller school. One thing that we were not really, we know that they were good, but kind of to expect a championship effort and a championship season out of a small school like that is kind of crazy.
It really is. And you got to give so much credit to that core group. Obviously, Coach Davis took this team to the finals in recent memory and ended up going to Coach Gray this year, and they win the whole thing. And it really goes out not only to the coaches, but that core of players that consistently work throughout the summer. I mean, you can see them playing all these games throughout the summer, and it really did make a huge impact, not only for them the rest of their lives, the coaches the rest of their lives, but for the town. It's a big deal. Holding a trophy at Michigan State's field as the last team standing, that's immortalized. It's going to be stitched in that trophy forever. And that's something that they certainly can cherish. Big round of applause for them, as well as on the baseball diamond as well. I mean, we can cue up Drake once again for the Aggies of Beal City as they run it back once again.
W's in the chat all the way through. Love seeing some local teams kind of get farther down and see that success. It's contagious, man. And I mean, it's going back to Everett. That was one, too, that we were looking at earlier on because they did not have the easiest road. If you think about that, they had Reed City in game one when we were talking to Coach. I mean, that was just a really rough kind of pairing for the start. But to see that right away, it was a big time thing. And then to have them go through, they beat Traverse City St. Francis. They play well against Hart, Gladstone, Buchanan. They beat 8-3, and then a 1-0 battle on last week on the 15th to beat Ottawa Lake. It was just a big time day for them. But congratulations, Everett. Way to go. We are happy for you, and we're glad that you guys pulled out the W, and Beal City as well. Way to go for you guys. I was able to catch them in person when they played. I think it was WMC in one of their games. They're a real good team, man. It is crazy. I think it was the second regional game, regional final. Before that, I think WMC scored a run on them, but before that, they had, I think, 16 games or some crazy ludicrous stat of not giving up a run, and that is just absolutely wild. So expected, but still happy to see it, and I think that'll probably conclude our kind of local area coverage for high school sports. I mean, it's a bittersweet time, but we got more stuff to look forward to, especially with summer ball coming up.
Yeah, it's going to be super fun. I mean, as you mentioned here, to kind of finish up the high school bit, we saw obviously Beal City really run through the season, and we had the idea of like, man, this team's really bringing a lot back from last year's championship team. There you can make a really big run, but of course, we know in sports, back to back is one of the hardest things that you can do, right? Three-peat, my goodness, that's going to be a whole nother level. But this team really was special. You could see the arms, as Joe mentioned, unbelievable pitching, especially defensively as well, to be able to hold defenses. We've known Beal City can hit. We know that their offense has been elite for the last 5, 6, 7+ years. And we really saw them be able to throw up huge numbers offensively. But the defense and the pitching has been their biggest improvement, I think, and has really gotten them to this next step to be able to get to the quarters and get past the quarters and actually get to East Lansing and deliver. And I think that's a really big thing for Coach Ancliffe and company, and especially for that town. Beal City, they have really turned athletics up when it comes to all sports, and baseball's has been a very key contributor of that and will do so for the time being.
For sure. I meant to say innings as well instead of scoreless games. I meant to say innings just to let you know so there's no confusion there. But still, dominant performance from the Aggies. Love to see it. We'll see if they can pull off the three-peat. I don't know. It's going to be tough to do. But bittersweet moment, like I said, now that high school baseball and high school softball has finally come to a close as of last week. But we got summer ball going. It's a blast. We got the Rubber Ducks in Big Rapids, Lumberjacks as well. I mean, the Cardinals U teams. It's going to be big time. And they're already kind of rocking through a good amount of the season. You can check the schedule on WBRN.com. There's all the games and stuff like that scheduled up until July. But Brandon, Rubber Ducks, Lumberjacks, who do you want to start off talking about first?
We can start with the Jacks, then get to the Ducks. But before we do, though, I want to make sure to shout out Michigan ADAS, Calibrations and Glass, big sponsor of the show. Any make or model, find out more at michiganads.com. Anything of your vehicle needs when it comes to calibrations and glass. We know that each and every car is becoming more and more of a technologically advanced machine. They can help you out. Be sure to give them a contact today. You can find their number as well online as on their website, once again, michiganadas.com. But with that, Joe, we go right to the Lumberjacks, a team that really started off the year pretty hot and a little skid over the last couple of games. Still 5 wins, 4 losses, 2 ties. But they've been playing some really tough teams as of recently. And not only that, they're playing teams now starting to play them the second, third time around. And we know it's really easy to beat a team the first time. 2, 3, 4 times in a series, that's when it gets a little harder. So naturally, some days it's just not their day. And right now, that's kind of what this stretch feels like for that team.
Yeah, as we kind of go through this type of stuff. I mean, on the 22nd, so tomorrow we're gonna try to get this episode out today. Well, Friday is the day that we're we're recording this, but they're gonna be playing Grand Rapids Brewers at Northview High School. So if you want to go to see them in person, you can. But like you said, Brandon, it is very tough for these teams to be able to beat them a second time. And when you got, I think it's what, 6 total teams in the league, you're going to see a lot of the same guys, and that's kind of when it starts to kind of turn the tides a little bit. Especially, you're so used to seeing kind of like these high school pitch. I mean, summer ball especially is kind of a step up from what we can expect when it comes to kind of difference of high school ball. You get a lot more guys who are kind of taking them more seriously. The type of talent kind of gets knocked up just a little bit more, and so with some of those guys, there might be used to a little bit less of pitching, and it's kind of not a culture shock or anything like that, but it's just something you got to get used to right off the rip. And I think, especially with a few games down, being 5-4-2, they're going to be at a spot now where, all right, we're in it, we're settled, we're going to be in a solid spot, and they're going to be hitting it pretty well here in just a hot second. I can guarantee you that.
For sure. And it's crazy to think that the Lumberjacks, they're 5-4-2, and offensively, they really haven't gotten hot. They've really gritted, grinded, whatever adjective term you want to put through it, any verb. They are kind of struggling with the bats, right? They're last in the league of the 6 teams in runs across the plate at 45 so far through their 11 games. You can do the math. They are scoring about 4 runs a game when you got other teams that are above 75 to even the 90s right now, that they're right in neck and neck with the standings. They've been very good defensively, but when this team really gets hot, I think that's going to be crucial because they have shown now this team can win games, tight games, and that's a big contribution for a lot of the core and experience of this group, especially in this local area, as a lot of these games do get close when it comes to a lot of these summer and fall ball leagues. So winning those tight games is very important, and especially it will when you consider the postseason, the end of the league season moving on. But right now, especially, I mean, they're going to be playing against this Brewers team for 4 games in a row. They're right now second in the league, and they're one of the best teams that started off this season. I believe they were 9-2, lost their last 3. So very similar situation. So both teams on an even playing field. It's going to be really fun to watch, but obviously we're going to see a lot of these local guys seeing how they're going to do. Zade Garrett. We'll see Xavier Allen on the other side on behalf of the Brewers. So that'll be really fun. But you also got Noah Morgan, who's hoping to get some innings here soon as well. Philip Wilbur, who actually, if you tune into the West Michigan Sports Show on Saturday, tomorrow, you'll get to hear an interview from him after making his commitment to Glen Oaks Community College, but he'll be playing as well. So a lot of local teams, and this is a really favorable matchup. And Joe, we're giving the people not just 1, they're giving them 2, 3, 4 games in over this weekend. So there's going to be a lot of baseball to be had here in the local area. Pretty fun stuff.
Yeah, it's going to be a blast. Brandon already mentioned they're playing the Brewers, and then some upcoming games next week on the 26th. They're going to be at Comstock Park High School playing the Byron Center Killer Bees, and then the game after that. So next weekend on the 29th is going to be against the Wyoming Nationals, 1-3 at home at Big Rapids. So if you want to get out there, maybe have a little bit of something to do on that Saturday afternoon, nothing better than going to watch a ball game and watching some good times to be had. So check it out. Put it in the schedule if you want, but it's definitely going to be a very, very cool thing. We'll move now to the Rubber Ducks, which is the younger age division. They've been doing some pretty solid stuff so far. They had a little bit of a rough skid, kind of like what the Lumberjacks had. They went on, I think, a 5-game losing streak, but they've won the last 2 games. Offense has really started to pick up, especially last 2 games they played against Gaylord, 115-5, and then they played Hudson Post 188 10-3 with a victory in that one. So they've been able to kind of turn around. The bats are starting to get up hot. And Brandon, you got more kind of the in-depth stats and stuff like that. But the Lumberjacks and the Ducks are still kind of finding that identity. And what a perfect time to right now, seeing that the meat and potatoes of the schedule and the season is happening right now.
Yeah, for sure. Right. We got some stats, of course, courtesy of our man himself, JT Scarpelli, who is apparently he's the
JT.
coach. I heard that the other day. So he's the coach. So fortunately, we were able to get stats over finally. But we've seen some pretty good stats overall. Ty Gilschek's thrown pretty well, 11 innings so far, ERA just at about 3.8 right now. That's a little high, but of course, that's considering the tale of 2 outings. He was great in 1 outing, gave up a couple runs in the second. He's going to start to get it back, especially for the season that he had on the mound for Big Rapids. We've seen a little bit as well on the mound as far as innings so far from Jason Ruther, White Cloud standout. So he's thrown the most innings so far at 14. He's starting to get his stats to really get back into the swing of things as well. As we've seen a lot of relief as well from Hunter Sellers. We've seen Noah Sweppenheiser so far. And the guys have done well. It's the consistency. That's really what this, and Joe mentioned it, obviously the 5-game losing streak is the consistency you don't want to see. You want to see it with the 5-game winning streak. But that, of course, it's going to come. There's a couple errors and a couple of those crucial moments in games. And right now, that's something that they just want to improve on going forward. But right now, the bats are starting to get a little bit better. I mean, we're seeing a lot of really good at bats from this team. Later in counts, good approaches, right? Coach Scarpelli loves, preaches, good approaches, and this is what this team has shown so far right now. Mason Ruther, Russell Toth, both batting over 400 right now through the first couple games this season, through the first 9 games. Philip Wilbur's mashing the baseball right now, as well as Ty Gilschek as well as doing great things with the bat. So we're seeing a lot of good things so far from this team. Only one that's left the yard, I believe, actually only 2 that have left the yard. Max Hammond and Philip Wilbur, the only ones that have gotten one around in 4 bases. So I think it's certainly a good start for this team. Talking to Coach Scarpelli, of course, they want to do better. The weekend was a little tough for everybody in Big Rapids, not only this past weekend, but the weekend before that, we had the local tournament here as well. So there's going to be quite a bit that needs improvement if this team wants to really compete for what every player that I've talked to ultimately wants, and that's a Legion national championship, right? That is exactly what they want, and that's the ultimate goal. And right now, they can definitely get to that point. We're not going to just go out there and say this is the best team in the nation, right? They know they're not. They know they need to play better. But right now, for this team, they've really gotten their feet wet, and especially Joe, you can attest to this as one that's played travel ball as well. New group of guys, new dynamic, new team chemistry, and definitely new strategy when it comes to your personnel. So it's going to take a lot of those first couple weeks just getting used to it, and that's what the team's still doing.
Yeah, it takes a second, and especially for a lot of these guys who are, not familiar maybe with how Coach Scarpelli coaches, it's kind of a brand new thing where you got to deal with that. Maybe some changes in your game that you got to toss around. It's a tough thing, and especially with, for how well they've been doing so far, I believe they're just under 500, 4-5 right now. They're going to be able to turn around real fast with a lot more games left to play. You got the whole summer still, and it goes the same thing. Lumberjacks, Rubber Ducks, same boat that they're in, and I think right now you're going to see it turn around. You already did with the Rubber Ducks, with them getting a 10-3 win, a 15-5 win. So there's no problem in getting the bats going. It's just finally now, all right, you've been hanging out with these guys. You're starting to mesh. You're starting to gel a little bit. And now everything's starting to kind of pick up, especially with coaching staffs and stuff like that. So it's a little bit tough right at the start when it comes to travel ball. Bray and I are very familiar with. So don't jump ship too early. All right. We still got some time to see these guys develop. But definitely one thing you got to keep an eye on because they got some good games coming up against some good opponents. And we're going to be in their corner for sure on both of those camps. But Brandon, I think that's good for summer ball. I'm really excited for where these guys are going to be at and where these teams are going to be pushing for. I think we got to hop now into the professional side with Tiger baseball. What happened with Tariq Skubal, man? What happened at that start? That was a rough one. I don't know, Brandon. You want to kind of touch on that and whatever else has been catching your eye in this past week when it comes to Tiger baseball?
Well, baseball happened. It's unfortunately just the nature of the game, right? And we've definitely seen from this Tigers team that anything that can go wrong will go wrong, right? It's a resilient group and it represents the city. I guess you can take that as a positive, but in reality, we want to just see not as much of that being necessary. We want to just see them play more consistently better and not giving us heart attacks left and right when returning on Bally or listening on WBRN. But I think the biggest thing right now for this group, I mean, you're looking so far at this. I mean, it's really been tough sledding for this team. When you look at really, they've lost, I believe, 7 of their last 9. That's really a tough way to go through this season, especially for what this team really had accumulated to that point going into June, where you're seeing really good numbers, over a 500 record. I mean, last time me and Joe talked on the show, we had all good things to say. And now it's a little bit of the opposite, you know. It's really
Not
one of
great.
the
Not
tough
great.
roads. Yeah, but right now I think Scooble, it's okay. Every single Cy Young winner has 3, 4 bad starts a year. And Scooble really had his first one. It happens, right? And a lot of the times when you're seeing a lot of these guys too, Reese Olson, who was really good a couple outings ago, but really had a shakeup outing before that. He was playing against a lot of the guys he played against in the minors. So they knew his stuff much more than a lot of the average knowledge would be going into that game because they had seen it numerous times and not just on film. So there's a lot of raw elements that go into it. And obviously, anybody that's played baseball, anybody that's played softball knows perception is different and perspective is different when you're in the box compared to what you see in the stands. It is immensely different. And that obviously has really unfortunately given the Tigers batting a huge struggle right now. I mean, this team is still just really lapsing when it comes to just good at bats. I think we've seen this group really collectively hit a couple of games so far. I mean, I'm looking at the schedule right now and just looking off of memory. There's been 2 games where we've thrown up around 10 runs, which is great in the last, 10 games. But you look at the rest of them, you're looking at 4, 5, 5, which are decent, and then 0, 0, 1, 1, 0. That's a problem, right? Those games you cannot have. And when you're losing these games 2-1 constantly, I mean, we look at the Brave series, that one, it was just, we lost 2 close games that we should have won. Bullpen had some slip ups, batting, we couldn't get it back in the late part of the game. And then we try to pull together an effort and just go for it all. And then the Braves just send us home with the biggest performance they could have had in that game. But it's just the nature of the sport. But right now, I think, Joe, we can agree, and this may be with Coach Scarpelli listening too, but this is a must sweep weekend type of feel right now for this group. Bad juju, we got to play, even if it's not a sweep, we got to play better baseball. We got to hit the baseball this weekend. Otherwise, this could really start going the wrong direction.
Yeah, they got the White Sox on slate. White Sox have just been playing not great baseball either with their record at the moment. I think they're just below, 20 and 56 is their record. We're at 34 and 40. We mentioned last week how if we, drop a few more games, it's going to be a very slippery slope to get back up to 500 and maybe make a push for a wild card. I don't know if that's really in the talks. I mean, I know that's kind of a long shot for how the season's been going, especially with, the AL in general, but still, you got to make sure to win some games. And this is a great way to get 3. It's not going to be easy. I mean, we saw that when we played them already earlier this year. They're not an easy team to beat by any means. But still, getting 3 wins, getting maybe 3 games behind 500, it'll still get us a good spot to be back in a nice little kind of not a driver's seat position by any means, but you can kind of toss on cruise control with maybe your foot still on the gas if you can get these 3 wins. So we'll see how it plays out. But there's been a lot of questions, especially I've been looking at forums and all that type of stuff when it comes to Tiger baseball, and a lot of the moves that a lot of people want to see are just not being made. I mean, Kenta Maeda having a 6.0 like 7 ERA is just not something that's going to be big, especially with how low our bats have been producing. You got to make a choice there. I don't know what you want to do, but he's just not going to be a guy that's going to be able to get you wins, especially with how well Matt Manning has been doing in AAA, I mean, maybe just call him up, see how he does, because we've seen him on the mound in the Tigers uniform before, and he's a pretty valuable asset when it comes to the pitching staff. You also have Andrew Navigado, who's doing pretty well in AAA. There's a lot of things, and Parker Meadows too. I mean, he was kind of struggling a little bit after that initial start when he got called up, got sent back down, but he's kind of starting to find himself a little bit more in AAA. And Akil Baddoo still is kind of the guy who's very streaky. We've seen that when it comes to his ability to produce, extra base hits and stuff like that. So there's a lot of things now when you think about, we're not to the All-Star break yet. You want to make some changes. You need to be able to kind of find a little bit of a spark before you have that break. What do you got to do? You got to you already did the right thing by sending out Torkelson, but there's still a lot of changes that need to be made. Kenta Maeda is my big one. I don't know what you got to do, but do not throw him out on the mound. Maybe, dude, just call it Matt Manning. What's the worst thing that could happen? He has a 7 ERA. That's okay. Our bats aren't even going to be able to get us 2 runs. So what are you going to be able to do? It's just so many frustrating things that are going on for us fans where it's just like there's a lot of moves that we don't know what's going on behind the scenes and stuff like that and the logistics and stuff, but it seems like it's a pretty easy fix or at least some pretty easy kind of changes that might lead to some big time deals when it comes to getting wins, getting runs on the board because batting wise, we're struggling. And pitching wise, we got 3 good starters, but you need a good 5 starter rotation to be able to be a team that gets to the playoffs. And it's been way too long since Comerica Park has hosted a playoff game.
It has been way too long, and it needs to happen soon. But I think especially Tigers fans, I think would like to see Matt Manning again too. I would think they want to see Jackson Job's rehab go by 10 times speed and get him back.
He's at the Whitecaps right now. If you want to maybe make your way down there, that's going to be a solid little spot for you. He's a good pitcher, and he's been kind of limited. I mean, he didn't do super well in his last start, but I mean, 2 innings pitched, and you're kind of limited on what pitches you can throw. I mean, what can you do? So it's not the worst thing, but still. That might be something for you in the car, or for some people in the cards if they want to go see a future Tiger. Maybe get the start over there at the West Michigan Whitecaps. Can't even speak right now. I'm stumbling over my words.
Yeah, but he's going to be fun to watch for sure. I'm going to go catch a couple games while he's still down. But I think especially with this team, the biggest thing that I've seen, ironically, after our talk earlier about the high school and travel teams, we talked about approach. Tigers have had a rough approach, it feels like. And I'm not necessarily judging that what they're doing is wrong. There's a couple of stats that I think really kind of show out. Obviously, we don't need to mention the batting average for this team right now. It's not very good. It's not the worst in baseball, but it's not great. It's in the bottom 30 percentile, bottom 25 percentile. But where this team really struggles is, I think, just the overall discipline at the plate. Top 10 in strikeouts and bottom 4 in on-base percentage. That's a little bit of a struggle. And that doesn't obviously totally equate over to batting average. I know the batting average is not great, but even if that is the case, you're looking at some of these teams that don't necessarily have as great of batting averages. I mean, they're still able to win some of these games due to the fact that they're getting on base via walks. They're getting on base via or hit by pitch. They're adjusting all that they need to be able to have a more quality at bat, get pitchers out of the game longer. That's really, I think, one thing that also has been, we've let some starts go by where we're letting some of these guys get in 5, 6, 7 innings as a starters, and that's something that you want to get a starter out 3rd, 4th, 5th inning if you want to be a really good offensive team, right? That's what some of these really good offenses in Major League Baseball do, like the Astros, like the Dodgers. They get on you pretty early, and when they do, they're able to knock out your starter, and that's how they get the bats going 3rd, 4th time around potentially in the lineup when they're seeing new arms, and they're able to really get on a lot of these bullpens. And that's really what postseason baseball is going to be about, because you're going to have to score late in games. There's no doubt about it. It doesn't matter who's on the mound. You got to be able to have a good first approach. And those good teams right now have it. We're struggling a little bit to get on the gas early. And that's something that really needs to change moving forward. But I mean, you're seeing good stuff from Riley Green, Mark Cannon. Those guys are really, really bringing up the load back into the order. That's where we need to see it. Of course, we'll throw out Javi Baez. He's got to be better. We know that. We don't have to keep beating that drum. But seeing guys like Colt Keith kind of still struggle, we want to see Carey back as soon as possible because his bat really brings a spark. Andy Ibanez, a lot of these guys, we see a lot of great things, but it's just not as consistent. You know, we can see it rip double into left center, and then the next two ABs are both strikeouts, right? Those are the things that we have to improve on, have better at bats right now. But on a plus side, Justin Henry Malloy isn't doing too shabby right now in his first couple of weeks in his major league debut. He's really been a contributor so far.
Yeah, he's been a real shining moment when it comes to looking at, the drab that is this season so far. But I think just seeing the consistency bump up, I mean, I know it's kind of something that we've been saying every week so far, but these bats just got to get a change. And whether that's, maybe making some moves to get a new bat in there, or maybe still kind of hoping that somebody can develop into that big time hitter, we'll see how it plays out. But I don't know what the solution is at this point. And obviously, Tiger management has not been really listening to the fans about what they want and type of stuff like that. But I still think we're going to make at least a little bit of noise this weekend. Who knows what's going to happen? But it's a house divided over here at the radio station with JT being such a big White Sox fan. But hopefully the Tigers can pull this one out. I think that's it for Tiger baseball. Man, we can only complain about them for so long before it starts to get old.
That's true for sure. We'll be definitely checking in and seeing where these teams are at. And we'll be definitely getting some interviews put together. Hopefully we can talk to the man himself, Dan Dickerson, to see where he's really gotten with this team, what the vibes are, what the changes that might be made coming up. So we'll be for sure looking at that. So you can tune in WBRN and you can subscribe to Big Rapids Daily News, and we'll get you up to speed, and it should be pretty cool. So, but another great episode here, Joe. Big thanks to Michigan 8S, and the rundown continues on here. And folks, I can't say this enough. Be sure to subscribe, because the fall is coming before you know it, and eventually around the corner, football season is going to start, and we are going to be going pretty hard starting this high school football season. We got a lot of great things planned, so be sure that you subscribe. The show right now is very, very direct. It is very much straightforward on how it's going. It's going to get a little more complex, and it's going to be visually appealing, and that's going to be really fun, so we can't wait for it.
Yeah, we really can't. I mean, as much as I love baseball season, football season cannot get here any sooner, because it just makes being around the radio station, I mean, WBRN, especially the rundown, just a lot more fun, because JT's going to hop back in here. Maybe we'll get Etch as well, kind of the original four that we used to have. I don't know what's going to happen, but we are going to peace out. We thank you so much for tuning into this episode of The Rundown. We will be back next week, same time, around the same time. We will be uploading Friday afternoon. I can tell you that. So you can count on that for sure. But we will see you next week. Thanks so much for listening. We love you. Appreciate you. See ya.
See ya.